And I truly felt like I needed that skill set to start my business. And I actually learned that you become more of a visionary as you kind of trust yourself, as you try and fail, try and are successful. Hello and welcome to the Service-Based Business Society podcast. I am your host, Tiffany-Ann Bottcher. If you are ready to scale your success, grow your business, and live that entrepreneurial life, click subscribe because we're about to get started. Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about something slightly different, slightly less specific about your business, and we're really going to be talking about remembering why you started. So I was recently scrolling social media and saw a post that said, if you are a parent who can sit in the crowd and cheer on your kid no matter what time, you are successful. And it really hit me, and it really reminded me of why I left the corporate space and started my own business. And a couple of weeks ago, we were talking a little bit about my time leaving corporate. We were talking, loosely about how I had been bought out and started my business and how it was kind of a big, scary step. And it really reminded me as to, that discussion and then seeing this post really kind of reminded me in terms of why. Why do we start our businesses? Why do we even do this? And when I saw that post and it kind of hit me, I am able to sit and watch my kids' practices. I am able to pick my kids up from school and drop my kids off. But does it mean that I actually work any less? Like when I really kind of get to thinking about it, I think I do all of those things. And I feel so fortunate to do that. And whether or not you have kids or whether you don't have kids, doesn't really matter. It's whatever you do with that time. Maybe it's that you are super into fitness and it means that you get to go to the gym multiple times a day if that's what you want to do. Maybe it's you're a professional sports player and it means that you are able to do your sport and do some kind of business. Whatever that is, mine is my kids, but it could be anything. It really comes back to why did you start? Why did you do this? Why are you on this crazy ride? A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how business is very uncertain and how it's really an uncertain time. And then it kind of gets us into thinking like, why do we want to have our businesses? What is the driver to want to be on this crazy journey that is all called entrepreneurship? And the fact of the matter is, I felt like I worked really hard when I was in corporate, and I did. And I worked really hard in a different way. I did more travel for work than I do now. I do still travel for work, but it's on my terms. It's booked around when I want. There was actually this really amazing opportunity that I really wanted to go do last fall, and it just didn't really work around everything our family had going on. And so I got to make the decision, hey, I'm not going to do it this year. Maybe we'll plan it better for next year, but it wasn't just really in the cards. But it kind of comes back to that where we get to be the driver. I'm going to share, I'm recording this podcast episode quite late. My kids are sleeping. My husband is working, actually. We both work late at night. Now, my husband doesn't have, he's a partner in his business, but he definitely works more kind of traditional hours, less freedom than I have. And I think freedom as a business owner is often one of those things that we laugh about because being a business owner, people are like, oh, you set your own hours, you do your own thing, you have so much freedom and flexibility. And I do have flexibility and freedom, sort of. I'm free to work as many hours as I want to, which means I can totally be recording this podcast in the middle of the night instead of doing, I don't know, anything else. But I want to be recording this podcast right now and it's quiet and it works. But there's this kind of weird piece that comes with it. We're free to stuff all of the hours in. We're free to do it however we want. But I don't know any person that is truly leading an extraordinary life, that is doing more than average, that isn't doing all the things. So yes, I'm in the stands cheering my kids on. We have a tournament coming up. And I didn't stress about the fact that the tournament starts on the Friday. I didn't have to worry about it. I just simply put a block on my calendar that said no meetings. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to. I'll answer the phone. I'll probably be chatting with the team. I'll email clients back. But am I going to be sitting in front of my computer? No. Will I be at the field? Yes. And I guess that really does kind of shapes what does success really mean to you. We talk about it in a, what does business, I talk about usually in like, what does success mean to you from a business growth and profitability and all of these types of things. But when it really comes back to what does it really mean on a deeper level? What does it mean when it has nothing to do with scaling your business to a specific size or hitting a revenue target or a specific number of leads you want coming in? Because it's, my brain goes that direction. It's very analytical. It likes the numbers and the data and the metrics and all of these pieces. But at the end of the day, when we really dive in and say, what is it all for? It's so much more than that. And for me, it really is the fact that I can be there and do all the things that I want for my kids. And I think that so often when we're building our businesses, we start with something in mind. I've talked about it many times over 4 seasons on the podcast. When I started my business, I wasn't going to work on Fridays. And it came from a place of, I worked ridiculous hours before I started my business in corporate, and I was gone. I was not at home. We had a full-time nanny. I've shared this before. I look back and I feel like I missed out on a lot of my first 2 kids being really little. And so I started my business when my 3rd baby was a baby. And so I feel like I got to be there for so much more. And so when I was like, I don't want to work on Fridays, and I still have meeting free Fridays, but I very much am still working. But I feel like as a business owner, I'm really always working, whatever that, good, bad, or ugly. I work a lot. I'm available a lot, but I don't resent that. In fact, I just really feel like it's just part of it because it means that I can be there when I'm sitting in the school lineup waiting for pickup. It means that I can do that when my kids are warming up. As they get older, you have to get like to these sporting events earlier and earlier and earlier. And so there's like this kind of lull, like you drop them off, they go in, they do their thing, and then you're kind of waiting. Recently, I was at a competition for my daughter and dropped her off, and it was like going to be like almost 2 hours until she was actually performing. And I was like, okay, well, I can go find a corner and, find some good Wi-Fi and hit it. It was like a Saturday afternoon and I sat in the sun and I worked for a while. And it was kind of, it's finding balance. And I think that building a business often comes with those kind of perks. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the uncertainty of being a business owner and that kind of negative side of it. But the flip side of that is like really remembering why you started your business. And sure, maybe it was because you were super passionate about your product or your service or whatever you were bringing to the world and you wanted to change the world. I follow someone online. She is also in the accounting space and she is so incredibly passionate about helping women specifically with their finances, understanding finances, empowering people to do amazing things with them. Her passion truly comes through everything that she shares. And that's so incredible. And so for her, that might be why that's part of why she started. But there's a whole element to why you thought it was a good idea to start a business. And it really often has very little to do with whatever you're selling. And there's this deeper piece as to why you wanted to be a business owner. I didn't know that I wanted to be a business owner. In fact, I often said I was a much better partnerpreneur than I was entrepreneur because I felt like when I started that I think this probably comes from spending so long in corporate conditioning, as I refer to it as, but I felt like those who led organizations had to be these very charismatic, masculine type energy leaders that were huge visionaries. And that isn't really my skill set. I'm going to correct myself here. I wasn't as much of a visionary as I am now. And I truly felt like I needed that skill set to start my business. And I actually learned that you become more of a visionary as you kind of trust yourself, as you try and fail, try and are successful. And then you almost start to have this bigger vision. And I think, when we're looking at our journey, sometimes we're comparing our chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 50. And it's so easy to do in the online space because people share. I of course grew I'm a millennial, and so I didn't grow up with social media, but in my adult life, social media has definitely been a thing. And so I can't imagine growing up and not really seeing these kind of looks into people's lives. This is just my normal. And I think we always have to remember that our normal is whatever our normal is, but that's very different than what someone else's normal is. But there was a time in life where people did not share. There were a time in life where you did not get the behind the scenes look. You did not get the vision of whatever they shared. And I think that social media is less polished than it once was, and people do share more authentically. But when that wasn't the case, or in the case where people appear to share something authentically, but maybe it isn't, you really are, it's their highlight reel. You're comparing your struggle with their highlight reel. And so it's this variation of kind of life and reality. My vision of what you had to do and be to be a successful leader is different now than it was before I was leading a successful organization. And so it's interesting how that kind of piece shapes and shifts over time. And so while I do think that you need to be able to create a vision in order to lead and grow and do things, I think that it comes with time. And so if you're ever feeling like I can't be that, I would say that you can. And I would say that not to limit yourself, because I can share personally that I felt that I was like, but I don't have that. I'm not super charismatic. I'm not super, like visionary. I'm more realist. I'm more, what is the strategy? What is the pieces that we need to do? I was more focused on like the tangible structure and less about the big vision. And I felt like that would always hold me back, because I truly do believe that you can only ever grow to as big as your vision can be. What is the difference between someone who has small and when someone who, has a small success and doing their thing, and someone who has a huge success? It's ultimately just someone's ability to think bigger. If you're a one pop, maybe you're a two-person coffee stand. Okay, well, what's the difference between being a two-person coffee stand and having, a nationwide chain of two-person coffee stand? It's just the ability to think bigger. It's the ability to see that you can do and be bigger. There's this crazy statistic, and I don't know, I have not been able to fact check this statistic of where it came from, but it says that 12% of women-owned businesses get to six figures, and 2% of women-owned businesses get to seven figures. 2% to seven figures. And so often you see these coaches online, just get to six figures, just get to six figures. I'm glad that I never saw those statistics. And I guess I never really saw the understanding or this infatuation with getting to six figures. I'm going to be completely honest. We blew through six figures in our first year. I didn't even realize it was a ceiling, because in my mind, it wasn't a ceiling. It wasn't a thing. We just did it. But as I've shared before, I came from a time where I made great money, and I didn't have the ability to not make great money, because my life was already built on making great money. And so, I'll be honest, it took a really long time to be able to make in my business what I used to make in corporate. But I also remember in corporate when it took a really long time to get paid what I used to make serving in a restaurant when I went to school. That was a really tough struggle, actually, that journey, because I made, I made good money serving, going to university, and then I started working in an office, and I started basically as an administrator to start with. And I was like, oh, this money is not very great. And I kept working and I kept working. And I thought, but I have a university degree. And I was like, I did well in school, and I just kept working and kept working. And it took a long time. And it was like, okay, this is not easy to just, okay, we're on a journey. And so same thing. Now you're starting your business, you're on a journey. And I think anyone who comes from like a consistent paycheck and then takes the leap into, owning their own business and doing their thing, it is a leap of trusting yourself and faith. But it comes with this piece of deciding what is the ceiling. Six figures was like, well, of course we're going to do six figures in a year. Of course we are. And I guess so the first 6 months of my business, I was still finishing up doing my master's. I was writing my dissertation, and I didn't really do anything with my business. I was like, you know what? I'm going to finish my dissertation. So I started going to grad school when I was pregnant with my third. I felt at that time I was unfulfilled in my previous corporate role. And I knew I wanted more, and I couldn't really put my finger on what that was. I knew that I wanted more. And I decided that, you know what, it must be more education. I'm going to do my master's. Pregnant, very sick. I was going to do my master's. Crazy. It was a crazy plan. And so I started and I did it, and I had my dissertation left to do, which was like a 70-page paper. And so by the time I left the corporate space and decided, I was going to start my own business, and I was like, I'm just going to finish up my dissertation. I've talked about it before. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, was finishing that dissertation, because I was a lot more affected by leaving corporate than I anticipated, in just like mindset wise. It was like leaving this crazy time in my life, and I had my third baby, and it was crazy. And he spent a little time in the NICU when he was born. There's just like a lot going on. And so then, but I needed to like write this paper. And so I finally got it done. And then I got started with my business. And ultimately from that moment of like, Kate, it was like this next chapter. And I haven't really let off the gas at all. Like, it's just been go, 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 go since then. And so, I mean, now I don't really have any babies anymore. My youngest is almost 6. So it's crazy. It's a crazy time. But all of that kind of to say, you have to decide why you take this on, why you think that being a business owner is a good idea. Because ultimately, being an employee, it is easier in a way. Sure, you don't get to pick your times and whatever else, but there's this just certainty. You just go, you get paid, you carry on. And so I want to ask you to really sit and think, why did you start this? Because as we talked about a couple weeks ago, 2025 might be a little crazy for you, maybe a little crazy for everyone. And so I think really remembering outside of your actual business, if it goes to, there's this book that Simon Sinek wrote that starts with why. And like, really, why are you who you are? Why is this important to you? Why? It really goes back into the why. And it's the same thing for you and your business. And so for me, it is the ability to be able to be at the sports practices. It's the ability to go pick up one of my kids when they're not feeling well. It's the piece that I have this life that works together, and I love all of the parts and how they work together. Would the way that I do it work for everybody? Probably not. And I don't think that there's any two business owners out there that do it exactly the same. And that's what makes it so special, to be able to do it exactly the way it works for you. And I get it. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it works for anyone or at all. And I think that as business owners, we all go through that cycle too. It's oftentimes, being a business owner can be a bit of a solo journey. And sometimes you don't necessarily have that piece or the people to talk to about, because as a business owner, everything is great. Everything's amazing. We're doing awesome, all of these things. And so then there's this vulnerable piece to saying like, hey, I don't really know if I can do this. It's like, there's these moments of doubt, or where things just feel like it's heavy load to carry. So know as a business owner that you're not alone, that everyone has moments of wondering if they're going the right way, if they're doing the right thing, if it's really working. Every single business owner has those moments. And if they tell you that they don't have those moments ever, I don't think they're being 100% honest. Because as a business owner, you have all of the power to make those decisions, but there's a lot of question of whether you're making the right one. For me, I know that any decision that I make that leads to building this life that I absolutely adore is the right one. And yes, there are moments, we all have them, where you think, gosh, is there an easier way? There's got to be an easier way than what I'm doing right now. I get it. But you know what? It's a crazy ride, but it's totally worth it. Just remember why you started. And don't just lean into I wanted to bring this product service to the world. I wanted to change people's lives with it. Sure. But why did you think that starting a business to do it was the way to go? I would love to have those conversations. So as I've shared before, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn at the Service-Based Business Society LinkedIn page. We also have Instagram. Reach out, drop me a DM. I would love to hear and chat about why you started your business, and maybe you'd like your story to be featured on a future episode. We're going to be doing more of those discussions and sharing some of the discussions that we have in the DMs with others on the podcast, because I think that building a business and growing and doing anything extraordinary, whether that is in sports, whether that is in business, whether that is some passion that you want to do at the next level, whatever that is, doing anything extraordinary has its challenging time. So buckle up, get ready, because it will be worth it. So that's all for today. Don't forget to click subscribe, comment below, and share the episode with a fellow entrepreneur. If you want to take us on the road, we are available everywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much. See you next time.